I'm not sure if people always understand my work without me being in the room. I've had questions. I wondered, why do these collectors want to collect my work? Why do they want a portrait of maybe my ancestor on their wall? It's a certain amount of appreciation for my culture that's very shallow. When I make art, when I tell stories, it's all an act of resilience. It's an act of resistance, because I've seen my culture taken and misused, appropriated, and a lot of times misappropriated. And there's an entirely fine line between appropriation and appreciation. Who makes that decision is my question. I know that it's not me, and it shouldn't be me. But then again, should it be you or another artist or a gallerist or a curator? Who is it?
Ben Pease, it's so wonderful to have you here. You're an artist, resident of Montana. Sometimes call yourself an indigenous creative, sometimes not. Maybe you can start with saying a bit about your practice, how it came to be that you became an artist.
I came into the art world thinking about another Apsáalooke artist, Kevin Ridstar, and he's been practicing for, I think, 50 plus years as a painter, among a few other things. And I was lucky enough to travel to a Western art show with my mother. I saw somebody from my community excelling and exceeding expectations. And at the same time, he was doing what he loved. He was also selling his paintings for thousands of dollars. And as a kid from the res, I had never seen that as a possibility for a lifeway. Another sort of introduction to it was my mother. You know, she's been an educator for many years, and she's worked in museum education. So we would travel to different museums, different institutions, and those institutions would send us out to different reservations, different villages. That sort of led me to always think creatively, I think, just by my proximity to these things. My first sale was for $400 to one of the people in my community, asking for a painting of his ancestor, his namesake. It was a commission, and then the commissions for that same thing started to roll in from families of namesakes and dignitaries and chiefs and matriarchs, and that's where it snowballed, you know. I started presenting my culture and preserving and researching myself and finding more out about myself through my art. So it was really like pulling the covers back, you know, and finding a way forward. It's always been an honor to paint what people have asked me to, especially from my own community, because if you see people within your community lifting you up and supporting you and sharing your work, that feels really good as an artist. Started realizing that I could make a career out of it. And I was in my senior year of football in North Dakota, and we found out we were going to have our first little boy. And so we decided to move to Bozeman, Montana, where I continued my art practice and continued my art degree. But I ended up dropping out because I got so busy. Commissions and gallery work and shows, markets, things like that. And so I was really operating in the Western art market full bore.
The Western art market, it seems like it's been good to you, but it also has a legacy that is, you know, challenging in other ways. Can you say a little bit more about what it means to be part of the Western art market?
The Western art market is a beast of its own.
Yeah.
Especially for artists who happen to be indigenous. I think if we don't really understand how to platform ourselves or our contemporaries, you know, our colleagues, as who also happen to be indigenous, and build a healthy foundation, then we risk boxing ourselves in, pigeonholing ourselves as the Indian artists, the Native American artists. There are the certain shows where I become, and other artists who happen to be indigenous, become tokenized in a lot of ways, put only in a certain box. I did a painting some years ago, and it was titled Indians on Horses in Their Natural Habitat. And as I was going to shows like the show in Great Falls where Kevin Red Star was featured, I would go into these different rooms, and each room is a different artist's booth. And in those booths, every artist would have paintings of Indians, Native Americans, on horses in their natural habitat, on a cliff, in the forest, in the river, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Entirely generalized, entirely romanticized. Yeah. And inaccurate in a lot of ways, because maybe there's some beadwork that doesn't match. Maybe he's riding the horse differently, and there's certain connotations that wouldn't really socially be accurate. I've had to work with direct competition from artists who don't happen to be indigenous, who are painting very similar subjects. And I've always had the question of why can a non-native artist make a painting of my ancestor, and I can make a painting of my ancestor, but theirs is worth 10 times the value that mine is. And so I bought an original oil painting of an artist who had existed in the Western art game for decades, and then I painted just simply over the top of it the words, Indians on horses in their natural habitat. And so that was sort of my first way to digest my role as an artist in this place.
A lot has been happening for you lately with projects around the country and now internationally. You've been in major exhibitions that feature women, as well as it seems to be that you are inspired a great deal by whether it's female figures or female creativity.
The Apsáalooke people are a matriarchal people. We have a clan system, and for the most part, we follow our mothers. I was predominantly raised by women, by my many mothers, my own personal mother and my aunts and my grandmothers and my sisters. And that is, like I said, that women are holy beings for the pure fact that they're able to keep culture together. I feel like that's a superpower. The designs that my great-great-grandmother made influence my work, and then my work inherently influences the generations beyond me, because that's what's happened, literally. I've made a painting of my great-great-grandmother's work, and that's influenced my children to make art. In thinking about, say, like some of the paintings that I've done where women have halos, I'm not really deifying these women or even sanctifying them like classical Byzantine imagery or Romanesque, imagery, but to say that they are holy in a lot of ways. It's an honor for me to be able to paint these people, because I want to not only honor my family and my community, but show that we're still here in the face of everything. And it's a beautiful notion to show that we're still laughing and we're still celebrating. It's also a form of cultural appropriation, sort of a reverse of what is usually seen as appropriative of Native American culture. I'm doing to Western culture.
You absolutely are. Female figures do seem so important to you, as well as the women's work bags that seem a little different from this legacy of portraiture that you're honored to be part of. So what is it for you to be painting and making imagery around women, and also to be working with these sort of abstract geometries?
In relation to the abstract beadwork, it's thinking about those temporal multiplicities, really, because Apsáalooke people today, we create I would argue, some of the finest beadwork in the world. And we have for many generations, since the time that beads came to us. Beads have been around for maybe thousands of years with the trade. And so I'm thinking about the works that are made in our communities today that are still used in culture, that are still used in ceremony, that are still used in celebration, and now in art, because beadwork is being accepted as an art form rather than a craft. That redefinition is important because there's artists who are beadworkers who are trying to make a healthy existence and living and career for themselves and their families. I think beadwork is an entirely undervalued practice, and so by painting beadwork designs, contemporary abstractions of them, it's sort of beckoning the value of beadwork for me.
Absolutely.
A new place.
Yeah, and so I think that it's also one of those things where there might be an assumption that a certain kind of abstract aesthetic is something that's ultra contemporary and not part of a historic tradition, sometimes denigrated as craft, and that you're taking that imagery and putting it into a contemporary art practice. What did the patterns represent?
A lot of times patterns in Apsalaga beadwork can tell stories. They can be representations of our ontologies or philosophies. And in the classical Apsalaga beadwork, there's a common motif, which is an hourglass. And I've heard people say the hourglass is representative of our presence here on this earth as humans, if not just Apsalaga people. It's our belief that the bottom triangle represents the land, our world. The top triangle represents the celestials, the skies, the heavens, those relatives.
Land and sky.
Right, land and sky, right? And in the middle, there's usually a bar or a circle, and that's where we exist as humans on the in-between. They say one of the most sacred times of the day is right before the sun comes up when the world stops. They call it the dark face time. It's where even if you're standing in front of somebody, you can almost barely see their face. And that's the most sacred time of night. And that is the bar. That is the circle in the middle, where we exist. I've just started making these abstract oil paintings in the past year, moving them from my ideas from the time when I was a kid, drawing them in all my sketchbooks. During class, I'd be drawing. A lot of times I'd be drawing these geometries, these Apsalaga designs. And they finally made it into my painting. And I'd like to give them some space and room to grow and really think about what it means. Because there's a certain cultural identity in trying to make abstract paintings that are also relative to Apsalaga beadwork. If there's an elder who sees maybe one of these new oil paintings, I hope that they would say, hey, that's kind of an Apsalaga design.
Yeah.
Those are the same colors, they're the same similar shapes, but it's not traditional. Right. And so maybe they might have an idea about when culture has shifted in their lifetime, because culture has shifted. Chief Pleniku, who was a visionary, a leader, he said that after the buffalo went away, nothing happened. And that's a powerful statement, because it was literally a collapse of many civilizations with westward expansion, with the colonization of the West. The apocalypse has happened a few times over, and aliens have invaded us and taken over and changed our ways of life. And so our philosophies, our ontologies, our mannerisms, just our ways of being had to shift, or we were no more. And Pleniku saying that nothing happened after the buffalo went away, it's true, because we're still here. As a res kid, I would have never supposed that I could have seen my work on the facade of the Field Museum or on the face of the Kennedy Center. I would never have thought that. But now that I've seen that, it's a part of who I am, and it's a part of my growth as an individual, as a human, and as an artist. It's helping me understand that, maybe, hey, I'm not the important one. Maybe the stories are the important ones. And so I'm spending more time building platform for art in my community and giving space for creatives in my community to share their stories and their works, to support a market for their work so that there can be more productive people, more people working and making things.
Thinking about the young Ben Pease when his mother brings him to museums or brings him to art shows where you see an artist making a living. Think about what it would be for young people now to come to this place, where there's a different kind of art here. It's not necessarily conforming to the Western art market. What do you think about what it might be to encounter the types of art forms that we have here?
I think it would be not only a culture shock, but I think it would be a sort of an uncovering of a new world, and realizing that humans can do really interesting things and share our experiences in really diverse and beautiful ways. If I came here as a kid, it would show me that as a res kid, I could do amazing things, and I wasn't really ever told that. And a lot of my relatives and friends, they aren't really told that they can do amazing, beautiful, and powerful things because of our environment, and that's a whole other set of dense and diverse issues. But I think it would help, if we were able to tell stories to kids here and make art with kids here and really cultivate the new generation in their abilities to share stories and consume stories. Our stories are so intertwined, and we forget that we're all here together. And I think it's important to realize moving forward.
Water, as you said, is the lifeblood of the land, that water is the power that formed this land and the depression that we're in. Water as a theme and as something that people tell stories about, that also seems to be part of your practice. Could you say a little bit more about water?
Water has always given us life. It's given our world life. It's shaped our world. It's everything about our world is centered around water. And if we don't treat water with the respect that it deserves, I think there's a time that we won't have the cleanest water. We won't have water available to the ones that we love or ourselves. So I just participated in a project titled Revitalize Relatives, sort of beckoning the thought that we have forgotten about some of our dearest relatives and forgotten about showing them love and support and kindness, and really seeing bodies of water as those relatives that bring us life and happiness. And I was commissioned by the city of Bozeman, Montana, and Mountain Time Arts from Bozeman. It's a nonprofit arts organization. And so they said, "Hey, Ben, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to think about the water." And there's a creek downtown Bozeman called Bozeman Creek, and it's one of the more polluted waterways in our region. And this creek, people really don't even know it's there, but it is like the lifeblood of the valley of the Bozeman. It carries all the water for many of the farms, for the city, the municipal water systems. But on my walk up to Mystic Lake, the source, the origin of Bozeman Creek, I started to see just farm implements, tires, car parts, trash. I really thought that I was going to have this spiritual experience as a native person. I'm going to go reconnect with the land and the water, and it'll be a good time. I'll grow. But instead, I came back depressed, and I decided that if we're able to change the way that people view water generationally, then maybe this project will be a stepping stone towards a larger interest in caring for the water. And so we decided to do a public art project going over the creek on a bridge going into the city hall at Bozeman. It's a large set of 2 glass panels, and they feature bison, which are a keystone species, and they feature other animals like the beaver, which is also another keystone species.
Can we talk about this imagined reservoir project? How you imagine it unfolding?
This project is inspired by buffalo, bison. Everything that they do, when they lay down, they give the land life. When they step, with each new step, they give the land life.
Yes.
When they eat, they give the land life. When it goes back out the other end, that's pure life. With each step, they create a depression where water is able to stay, where there's space for seeds, space for fertilizer, and it's a perfect little pocket for new life and new growth. This installation is a series of buffalo prints in the land that act as reservoirs for water retention and to help the ecosystem regenerate itself. Not only an art piece that's just pretty to look at, that's away from the land, even though it might be sitting, maybe a sculpture might be sitting on top of the land. This installation is in concert with the land. The functionality aspect is entirely integral to the project. So I view it to be a regenerative sort of entity on the land, for the land, not for the sake of art particularly always, but also for art,
That sounds wonderful. Ben, thank you so much for your time here. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. It's a true privilege to get to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.